Hello, everyone. It's been a little bit since I've done a podcast. It probably looks like I've done podcasts because Jerry posts one a week, but I kind of slacked off a little bit. I've been fly fishing, and this is podcast just with me. I'm going to start doing these a little bit more often, especially when applicable. One of the things that I kind of wanted to chat with, and since I've been fly fishing quite a bit lately, try to, I guess, put this into perspective of what I want to talk about today. Recently I got rid of a bunch of drama in my life. Hopefully that continues. And, when I did that, I made the decision of like, what, I'm going to, when you're in a position that I'm in, as well as many, many others, right? Whether that be Dan Staten or Cam or Ranella or Dudley or whatever, you kind of have to kill stuff, right? You have to produce some type of content. And obviously I'm more known as a bow hunter, compound guy, trad guy, and not really known as a gun guy, although I will pick a gun guy up, but I really like fishing. I really like photography. Well, the photography thing isn't that big of a deal, but the fishing thing, I told myself like I'm going to start fishing a lot more, especially fly fishing. And so that was one of the things one of my best friends, Dan Hauk, he's actually my dentist as well in town, had asked me a ton last year to go fishing throughout the winter as well as the summer. And I never made it. Never was able to go. So this year he had asked me and I'm like, oh, hell yeah. I'm definitely going to hit it with him. And the first time I floated the river with him, addiction, right? Like immediate, I'm like, yep, I'm going to start fly fishing more and more again. Well, the reason I'm bringing this up is, you do something long enough, you get stuck in your own bubble, so to speak. And when I say that, like bow hunting, I bow hunted for so long, you kind of forget what it was like to be new at it again, or some of the trials and tribulations that you went through, or what the hell it even took to be successful. Because when you start bow hunting, you suck, you get a little better, and then years down the road, you end up hopefully kind of knowing what you're doing and becoming, hopefully kind of a master at it, and you kind of forgot maybe what the hell even got you there. Where with fly fishing, I have fly fished off and on, since I was a kid, but I never became a master at it. I pretty much always dry fly fished in high lakes. And, when I say high lakes, alpine lakes where you backpack in. And I did a lot of spin rod fishing, and I did that on lakes and creeks, rivers, but I mostly spin fished. But I did fly fish, and thank God I learned how to cast, which is important with fly fishing, but I'm not a master at that. There's a lot of things I have to learn. And it really made me think, especially freezing my balls off because it was snowing and like 8 degrees and the eyelets were freezing up and we had a headwind, right? Thinking about, like the shit that I went through bow hunting to become good, to become a good shot, to become a good bow hunter in general, animal behavior, all that stuff, the gear, and it parallels a lot. And when I say it parallels, like you can be good. I got a big chew in. I'm dipping right now. You can be good at, say good. You can be hobbyist, right? You can be like me and a lot of my friends I know. When they get into something, it's total, like you're just like devoted to that, to mastering that. And then sometimes you, like with me, bow hunting, you stay with that the rest of your life. Other times you master it and you kind of get bored. You might move on, or it's not as exciting. Like me bouncing back and forth between traditional and compound archery. Get bored with one, go to the other, whatever. Well, with, fly fishing and bow hunting is kind of the same thing. It's always new. And when I say always new, even if you hunt the same spot, something new happens. You can't predict the animals as well. Something new is going to happen. And there's some days that fish or elk or mule deer are just going to kick the shit out of you. And the gear portion, there's cool gear you can buy, and it's the same thing. You can buy some gear, never buy it again. Or you can be a gear junkie and buy a shit ton of gear. And again, same thing, bow hunting and fishing. And I really like fishing, especially fly fishing. So I was like, I'm gonna do it again. But again, what I'm going to talk about today is how those things parallel some deficiencies I have, like what I need to work on in fishing, and so on and so forth, and then kind of combine that together as we're kind of moving along. And hopefully this podcast won't suck. And really prep for it other than just thinking about it. I didn't take any notes. It was just comical to me of like, the level I'm at fishing, and when I say fishing, fly fishing, this is all fly fishing, not spin fishing. Where I'm at, the fact that I was able to catch fish, which had a lot to do with Dan, what I learned and then how I get immersed in something, like immediately, started like Googling stuff and I'm watching videos. And anyway, on the fly fishing side of things, where I take that for granted in bow hunting. I've been out for so long and I kind of forget what it was like to be, young again, to be new at something again, to be green at something. And I say green, I mean, I can fly fish, but again, I'm just not the level I want to be at or a master at it. And when I, with fly fishing, and I'm speaking to this of my limited knowledge, and again, paralleling it to bow hunting, like dry fly fishing. Okay, well, I know how to do that and I can cast. But then you have like nymphing and Euro rig and weight forward line and weighted line. And for those listening that actually are masters at fly fishing, don't bang me up too much on this. Again, I'm trying to speak from the heart here, that I have so much to learn. So the recent fishing trips, we were nymphing. And when I say nymphing, we were running like a double dropper basically with an indicator. And, I have fished before with basically more of a Euro rig where I've just casted out like a bead-headed brassy or bead-headed prince, whatever, and not put much for split shot on it. Watched the, tip of my line, my fly line, and kind of did okay and would catch some fish sort of occasionally, and but mostly again dry fly fished. Where with nymphing and what we were doing, Dan came over to the house. He's like, "I'm going to get you rigged up. It's very important." Number one thing, even more important than the flies you use, is getting to the depths of the fish. So he showed me how he rigged that up. And, it's X amount of tapered leader, cut some of that off, add tippet to that, 4X, 5X tippet at that figure eight, at that blood knot or triple surgeon's knot where you splice in that tapered leader to the tippet. You put the split shot right above that, X amount of line, you tie on some kind of depending, a sow bug or a scud or whatever. And then you have like 12 to 18 inches of leader after that. You got like a midge on or another maybe sow bug. Anyway, the depth is super important. And Dan was able to help me out with that. And so the first time we went, we did really well. We caught quite a few fish. And anytime you're fly fishing, like you catch one big rainbow or one big brown, the day is worth it for me, especially on a fly rod. And we ended up catching, I don't know, far more than, I don't know how many fish we caught. Probably I caught 4 to 6. Dan caught about the same, all big fish. So paralleling that, right, the depth of the fish, which is where the fish are at. So, nymphing, colder water, thank God I can read a river. Right, those fish aren't going to be. There's going to be in deeper pools, kind of just sitting there, wait for food to come by them. And I know that from fishing enough, but getting a fly to that fish is a lot more difficult than running spin tackle sometimes. And again, I may be speaking out of turn here, but going off of my knowledge. So that part, Dan showed me how to rig that up, and I thank God can tie all those knots. And monkey see, monkey do. Right, I can nymph fish in air quotations, kind of. And when I say that, I'm not a master, but I can rig that up and go nymphing now, which I'd never really done that much before. So where are the elk at, right? Where are the deer at? Well, there, I spit my chew out. Generally, right, when you start out elk hunting, they're in the woods. So you head out in the woods, fish are in the water, you head out to the river. All right, where are they at in the river? Okay, well, if you don't know that much about winter nymphing, or you don't know that much about elk hunting, or the elevation that you're hunting at, right, the pockets they may hold up in, what they're looking for, same shit, different day, different pile. Well, man, I forgot, it's what made me think about it. And obviously I'm super excited about getting back into fly fishing. So I was like, all right, how can I convey this message to people listening in that maybe masters at fly fishing, just wanting to get into elk or mule deer or bow hunting in general, which is what I'm talking about, not rifle hunting, but bow hunting, where, somebody might listen into, because like I can pretty much get sent anywhere with a bow, bow hunting wise, deer, elk, sheep, goat, moose, whatever, probably going to be successful. Not all the time, but for the most part, I've done it long enough. Can I do that with a fly rod? Fuck no. No, not unless I cheat, right? And somebody shows me. Now, I'm one of those guys that I hit things hard and heavy, head down and figure it out, right? Which is the same way I was with bow hunting. Well, that'll go now a lot farther, that dedication, because you have that easy button to hit with YouTube and podcasts and learning, where when I learned to elk hunt, I didn't really have any help, right? So it's trial and error. So I've got some help on the fly fishing side. So paralleling that, where are the elk at? Earlier in the season, they're up above tree line, summer feeding patterns, or at tree line. As time goes on, the rut kicks in, certain things happen, right? Bigger bulls will grab the cows, and they're going to kind of go into their little hidey hole. And then satellite bulls may hang out there. Other bulls may take off, try to find cows. Anyway, I'm not going to make this into an elk hunting thing, fishing thing. So that was that part of this. Okay, parallel one, right? Then the gear. Well, I would say, and again, for those master fly fishermen, don't make fun of me too much, it's probably about the same. You can get it done, and you don't need an Orvis, whatever, Helios, or a Loomis, whatever it is, NX, whatever the hell a Loomis rod is, the higher end ones. And I got a Douglas rod is what I was using. And do you need those? Can you buy a used rod? Is a 5, 6, 7-year-old rod worth half the price it was going to be good enough? And I would say yes, from my limited knowledge. Like, you don't have to have the best gear. You just need to have the gear. And when I'm saying that, you send a guy out to go elk hunt that knows elk, he could have really crappy gear and a really old bow and going to be far ahead of a guy that, or gal, that has the very best of everything that you can buy, but doesn't have the knowledge. And, I try not to spend, I try to buy once, cry once with the fly fishing, the elk hunting, whatever I can afford. So, that's a big parallel, because a lot of people spend so much money on gear and forget that you have to hit the fucking animal, right? So you have to learn to shoot under multiple different situations, like, high wind, no wind, dead silent, stalking in, foot off angle, tuning the bow. Like, you got to have the right fly line for the right weight of rod, so on. And so again, it all parallels, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the best gear. The better gear you get, it doesn't ever hurt, but knowing how to fish, knowing the depth of the fish, knowing how to read the river, knowing how to tie up whatever specific rigmarole, apparatus, whatever you want to call it, whatever system you're tying on, what fly to use, how much does that matter? Learning to tie your own flies. Again, it all parallels. And so, take a drink of coffee here. That is good. So when I talk about like tying flies, that would be like fletching arrows. And then spine, right? Okay, you learn the spine of the arrow and how to tune that spine to the poundage. And then you have all the different fly lines. Again, not perfect parallel, but man, it's a lot the same. And again, excited. So where the elk are at, where the sheep are at, the goats are at. Okay, reading the fish, right? Where the fish at in the river, where the elk at, whatever, the gear, same kind of thing. Well, then how much, as you're going into this, how much dedication do you have to be a master at what you're doing? And I've got a long way to go with fly fishing. And when I say dedication, am I lacking at the ability to cast? Am I lacking at the knowledge of being able to walk into any river at any time of year, learning what bug to throw, what rig to run, how to run it, what rod to bring? Do I need a 3-weight 10-foot? Do I need a 5-weight 9-foot? How much does that matter? There's, of course, there's multiple, running streamers, and there's all kinds of different stuff with fly fishing. And so again, parallels quite a bit. So for me, obviously, I got a birthday present. I got a Flycraft Guide 3, and that, best birthday present you could ask for. So planning on floating a lot of rivers with that thing. So I'm excited about that, but I got a lot to learn. So I pulled up podcasts. I'm basically now I'm the guy wanting to ask questions to people that know what they're doing with fly fishing. Where on the other end of the spectrum with bow hunting, I'm the guy that gets asked the question. And again, it was so fun for me to think about this, try not to screw this podcast up, which won't be super long, but it's reminding me of what I've forgot maybe, and that love and drive and newness that I had with bow hunting and archery so long ago. it's kind of, it fades a little bit. There's no way around it. I still get excited when does walk under me, but you get a little bit lazy, I guess, or bored. Where with fly fishing, it's newer. And I've always fly fished some, but man, like right now, I'm more excited, I would say, about hitting some of these rivers through the winter and spring than I am about spring bear hunting. I'm going to spring bear hunt. Again, same guy, Dan. Dan and I are going to hit it hard with that, and Steven. But also sharing the story, right? Sharing the knowledge, what I'm learning, from wind nuts and how to not get those, to what I'm learning as far as like, what do you want to call it? Like, the setup, like the knowledge of like, okay, this is what I ran today. It wasn't really fishing well. I wasn't running my fly deep enough. I had to add some split shot, or good Lord, I see where people are talking about as I'm learning that art a little bit more of running this specific rod or setup compared to another one, where now, I mean, I can cast, but I can, you hand me 4 rods that are all high end. Could I tell the difference from a mid-range? Could I, and what rod do I need? Again, learning all that and talking about that as time, goes on. So then the next thing, like the parallels, right, is that easy button, right? How you learn and the way you learn it, and then going out there and applying it and just getting out there. So, a lot of times I'll get that question of how do I learn more about woodsmanship or bushcrafting or wilderness living. So when you look at that, right, like I've always been the guy that's like, just get out there, right? Like get some gear, go practice building a fire, right? Practice, like Google, like, cause you can Google anything, practice learning the knots that you need to learn those, go out and apply that, backpack in, get your ass kicked, figure out what gear or whatever else you need. And as you're getting your ass whooped, you're learning more and more every time. And so same thing, I'm going to do the same thing, document that when it comes to fishing. And lucky enough, like I had Dan to help me out with this. And then thank God I learned to cast a fly rod many years ago in the 90s. And that helped out a lot. But I can tell you, yarding out 11 foot of leader with a giant strike indicator on it, when your eyelets are freezing because it's, 14 degrees outside and the wind's blowing, it's a little bit different casting the dry fly. Dry fly is about the easiest thing to cast for the most part in comparison to yarding out, again, 11 foot a leader while shit's freezing over. But practice, right? Hitting it again and again, practicing it more and more, having that desire, to go. So as I'm rambling on here, I have right now a 5-weight Douglas Sky G. And then I have an 8-weight Lamson. And that 8-weight I got for more running big streamers and things like that. I probably could be running a 6-weight, although that Douglas did pretty damn good with the fishing that we're doing now. So I had posted up something and I had an amazing response about trading or buying, a couple different flywoods, a 6-weight and a 3 or a 4-weight. And I can't thank everybody enough for whoever's listening in. About that kind of helping me out. I had luckily enough, I had a couple reps get a hold of me, from different companies. That was great, that had some demo rods and things like that. So that was awesome. And I want to get some of those guys on the podcast to share their knowledge, in fly fishing. I'd listened to some podcasts this morning when I was working out about, fly fishing and different setups. And, again, it parallels so much, which I probably said parallel too much on this podcast. So, as I'm learning about all this stuff and kind of experiencing it more and more, I want to get people on the podcast to talk about, fly fishing, especially people that fly fish and bow hunt or fly fishing or looking at getting into, to bow hunting, again, spreading that knowledge. And I definitely want to throw a shout out to Brandon over at Flycraft. I forgot when I got the boat in, he was a huge help, with getting the boat set up and questions that I had and everything else. I will say, like, the negativity and hatred seems to be flowing just as constant on the fly fishing stuff. When I started like Googling reviews on certain things, looking at different stuff, you still get the same thing you get on the bow hunting side of things, which is unfortunate, but it was comical to read through some of that. And so anyhow, so my main goal this year is to fish as much as I can, still get a ton of hunting in. Obviously in the fall, I'm not going to be fishing. I'm going to be hunting. Float as many rivers as I can, head out to as many places I can to fish and learn as much as I can. And hopefully, God willing, and everybody reading along and listening and everything else will be accepting of that and hopefully find that as cool. Because I'd really like to add, not just when we do the high country fishing when we're running spinning tackle, because we're going to do that. We're going to do a lot of these courses where you can, limited slots, but you can just come out and do a backpack trip with us, and we may backpack in and go fishing. But that's going to be us teaching you as much as me learning from somebody that may know more about fly fishing. So one of the things I did though, after that first time Dan and I had went, and I told Dan I had this Flycraft raft gun. He's like, well, dude, you can borrow my drift boat whenever you want. He's like, you're going to love that Flycraft because there's like these other rivers we're going to hit that are a little shallower, but we can bounce back and forth. He can borrow my raft. So I called Colton Gilman. He's up in Montana, a friend of mine, a hell of a bow hunter, really good stick bow hunter, but also fly fishes quite a bit. And I'm like, dude, get the fuck down here. Let's hit this river. So Colton came down for a couple days and fished. The first day was miserably cold. We hammered the fish. We did really good. A little slow starting out, but unfortunately we hit a 30-mile-an-hour headwind with like a mile and a half to go, and it got so bad Colton had to sit on one side of the boat, I had to sit on the other, and we both rowed at the same time, and he actually walked the boat for a while. But he's fished quite a bit, as far as streamers, and I mean he's a fly fisherman. He's learned, he knows quite a bit on that. So we started hitting that river and we're able to yard in quite a few fish. And then, I'm watching him and learning. He likes to fish streamers. So I had originally thought about getting rid of that 8-weight. And he's like, dude, keep the 8-weight. Use that thing for fishing streamers. And so he was talking to me about streamers and, what you're yarding out there. Basically, it's like, you're basically Rapala fishing. And he had some crazy streamers he was, trying out, where Dan doesn't streamer fish that much. He's more of a nymph guy. And like I was throwing out like size 20, 22, 24 midges as my bottom fly, where, then you're yarding out a, streamer that's 4 inches long. Yeah, it's a huge difference. So again, learning those things and like when to run a streamer, and then, casting a streamer is kind of crazy. He had a spay rod, I think that's what it was called, for one of his streamer rods. So again, learning that. So Colton and I hit the river a couple days. I will say rookie mistake. Second day we hit a hole, and Colton, I think, yarded in, 2 or 3 brown trout just back to back to back. And he was like, hey man, you hit that hole now. And I went up to fish it, and we looked back and the boat was floating away. So anybody listening in will find this comical. We had pulled the boat up on shore, we thought was enough. And I just had knee surgery, right? So I'm trying to milk my knee, like literally take it easy on it. And the fucking boat is floating away. So I take off. I was closer to the boat than Colton, trying to run. And I'm like nipple deep, dive and grab the boat. Well, I can pull myself up onto anything. Normally I got crazy upper body strength. My chest rig hung up on the lip of the boat. So now I'm like, I guess I'll just hold on till I hit land again. Holy shit. Or I tried to like flip myself. So I look like a walrus trying to roll off a fucking rock. And I got in the boat and then paddled back up. So thankfully Dan wasn't overly pissed. He kind of giggled when I told him we about lost his boat. So paddled back up. So it's kind of one of those rookie mistakes you could probably parallel to doing dumb shit with your bow, like leaving your bow and then or your release or something. But we ended up we were running again scuds and midges, sow bugs, and did pretty decent on egg patterns as well. So we hit that a few days, and then Dan and I went again, and it was miserably cold. It snowed quite a bit when Dan and I went, and Dan and I only caught one. No, I caught one fish. I think Dan caught more than that. But again, that one fish I caught just makes the whole day. And I was just like, man, I can't wait to go back out again. I got to go down to the Western Hunt Expo. But when I get back, definitely going to hit the river again in that boat. Luckily for my schedule, I can hit it midweek because it does get pretty busy on some of those rivers on the weekend. So luckily I can hit it midweek, which is great. So, as I'm learning this, hopefully for the people, I appreciate, I guess, the people that are messaging to me, different info and help and invites on fishing, as they saw those photos and stuff. Because I don't think a lot of people knew I even knew how to fly fish. So you're not going to learn that much from this podcast, but I did find it super interesting, again, on the different parallels and everything else with this. Because again, I'm not a master fly fisherman or fly fisher person, I guess the politically correct way to say that now, but I love to fly fish. And I, luckily with what I'm doing now with Born Primitive, they're like, hell yeah, I mean, hit it. And then, we're going to get to work hopefully with some different fly fishing companies, co-promotion stuff, spread again some of the knowledge that I'm learning, but also get some of the people on the podcast for those interested in fishing. And even before I went out with the fly rod, I had actually just done a podcast on my high country fishing setup for a spinning rod. And I've always, backpacked into lakes for forever, as much as, at least try to do at least a couple, 3-4 trips a year with spinning tackle, which is Panther Martins, Blue Fox spinners, spin caster, the needlefish. What am I trying to say? Anyway, spoons and crap like that. Castmasters, good Lord. The different tackle that we use. And with that, I'm usually running 4-pound test on my spinning rod with like an ultra lightweight 6-foot, fairly fast action, 4-piece rod. With 4-pound test, those fish can be kind of finicky in some spots where, man, this stuff I was just running, like I was running, 4X tippet and honestly got lucky I didn't lose a few of those fish. I mean, hell, one straightened out my midge, my hook. I lost one, just snapped my line. So learning all that stuff as I go on, what I can get away with. And, you get into you'll read about different rods of, this has a little bit better at presentation. This rod, is a little bit better at yarding things out and actually being able to feel those things. As I'm getting better and better at this, it definitely excites me. So, either way, as this goes on, I kind of wanted to launch this podcast out kind of as this goes on. Again, I'm going to try to get some different, maybe known personalities and very knowledgeable people on the fly fishing side, but also kind of parallel. Again, I said parallel, what I'm learning in comparison to kind of what I take for granted in bow hunting. And that excites me for sure. As time goes on, because I think that any time as you get older, and I mean, I'm not over the hill by any means, but I'm definitely getting older and older, obviously. I just turned 48. And when you can find something that excites you the way that you were excited when you were a kid is always a good thing. And I'm definitely excited about this. I'm really excited to get that Flycraft on the water. Talk about that. A lot of people had questions about that. Talk about how that thing does. I've been in one before a couple times, and I really liked it, but it was a smaller version. So, again, just share the experience. For those listening in, let me know what you want to hear and see. Do you want to hear these things as I'm going on of what I'm learning? Do you want to see more videos of us floating the river, what we're using, backpacking in, things of that nature? And I'll talk about those. But I do want to mention too, off the subject as I'm rambling on, we are going to be doing these backpacking courses, and it looks like now Born Primitive was pretty cool about me offering those for free, or at least for the first few, where we're going to let you know the dates that we're going to go, kind of the fitness level you need to be at, and it'll be limited slots, but you can sign up and just come out here and backpack in with me and Kurt and crew, Steven, and I'll teach you along the way about backpack hunting. I'll teach you setting up your tent correctly, where to camp, how far to camp away from elk, glassing, like where I would set up for glassing, water purification, how to get water, what to do in certain survival scenarios. Kurt will talk about different bushcraft skills. Just get you ready, literally like backpacking 101, and then we'll hit some high lakes. While we're up there, we can do some fishing, how to cook the fish, prepare those. Colton Gilman's going to help out with some of those as well, which will be cool. He's a hell of a fisherman, hell of a hunter, so learn from him, especially on the stick bow side of things. So I'm excited to talk about that and then announce that soon on the dates we'll have those courses to be able to just go in and, break bread, hang out with some cool people, and, hopefully, learn from each other while we're back there. Specifically, maybe you learn from me on the backpack hunting side, and hopefully I can learn from you about something else. So either way, this one's only about 30 minutes long, but it was definitely, again, something that I was like, wow, this reminds me of when I got started in bow hunting. And thank goodness I can read a river. I've been spin fishing for a long time, but again, pretty green on the fly fishing thing. Excited to hit that as much as I can till hunting season. And, it's a good way to get in shape, hike into lakes and everything else. So anything you guys want to hear about, any specific people would be good to get on the podcast, bow hunting, obviously, but fishing specifically, talk about fly fishing, some people that are like legends in that world or have great stories or whatever else, let me know so I can get them on the podcast and kind of expand a little bit from, what we've been doing and talk about fishing a little bit. So thanks again, everyone, for all the cool comments on the fishing side of things. Thanks for everyone that, kind of threw in different options, getting me set up on some different options for fly rods and the comments and everything else. I'm super excited about this. I'm excited about what's to come with Born Primitive, and I appreciate everyone so much. So here we go. Hopefully I don't have too many wind knots this year and starts kind of a new addiction. I'm super excited. And talk to you guys again soon.